let's be honest. When you think of the Afghanistan-Pakistan border, peaceful probably isn't the first word that comes to mind. But today, we're diving into a story from that very region that flips the script. It's a powerful and mostly forgotten story about one of history's largest nonviolent movements, and the man who built an army for peace. For centuries, the stories we've heard have painted a pretty consistent picture of the Pashtun people. You know the one. They're often slapped with this label of a martial race, a culture defined by honor, rebellion, and, well, violence. That's the stereotype. That's the backdrop. But what if I told you that in the 1930s, more than 100,000 of these very same Pashtun men joined a highly disciplined, organized, and strictly nonviolent movement, an army for peace? That number is just staggering, and it completely shatters that whole stereotype. And that brings us to the big puzzle, doesn't it? How on earth did a people so closely identified with warrior traditions build a massive army completely committed to peace? Well, the answer lies with one incredible man and his really radical vision. So, to really get our heads around this, we first need to understand the movement itself. They were called the Khudai Khidmatgar, which literally means the servants of God. So yeah, the Khudai Khidmatgar, servants of God, founded back in 1929, they had two main goals: push for social reforms and win independence from the British. But here's the kicker. They pledged to do it all through absolute nonviolence. They were also famously known as the Red Shirts because of their uniforms, which were dyed a deep red, symbolizing their readiness to sacrifice themselves, not others. And the man at the very center of it all was Abdul Ghaffar Khan. His own people gave him the name Badshah Khan, which means King of Khans, a huge title of respect. But to the rest of the world, and especially to his good friend Mahatma Gandhi, he became known as the Frontier Gandhi. So who was this guy who somehow achieved what seemed impossible? Well, his background is just as surprising as the army he built. You might think he came from humble roots, but nope. Khan was born into a wealthy, powerful family. He was actually all set for a comfortable life, even had plans to go study engineering in England. But his education at a British missionary school changed everything. He was so impressed by their ideal of service to the community that he ditched his plans to go abroad. He felt this powerful pull, a calling, to serve his own Pashtun people right there at home. And that calling got cemented by what he saw firsthand. He witnessed a British officer just publicly tearing into one of his friends. And he was disgusted by the blatant racism of the colonial system. Right then and there, he turned down a prestigious job offer with the British forces and dedicated his life to a different kind of struggle, a fight for the dignity of his people. Now, this is where the story gets really, really interesting. It's about how he did it. See, he didn't try to bring in some foreign idea. He found all the tools he needed for this radical peace right inside his own culture and his own faith. To even have a chance, Khan had to work within the Pashtun cultural code known as Pashtunwali. Now, this code is built on pillars like honor or nong, and especially revenge or badal. For a Pashtun man, if you were insulted, seeking revenge wasn't just, an option. It was a sacred duty. And this right here is a perfect example of his genius. He didn't say, your code is wrong. No, he reframed it. He argued that the old way, the courage of revenge, bada, that was the easy way out. He said that real, superior courage came from sabr, from patience. He completely redefined heroism as having the moral guts to take a hit without hitting back. I mean, in his own words, it's the ultimate test of courage. Can you imagine? For a Pashtun man to be told that putting down your rifle takes more guts than picking it up, that was a completely revolutionary idea. He flipped the whole concept of honor on its head. And crucially, he made this idea feel authentic because he rooted it deep in Islam. He talked about Islamic principles like mercy, rahmah, and patience, sabr. He pointed directly to the Prophet Muhammad's own story of enduring persecution in Mecca without fighting back. This was masterful. He turned nonviolence from just a political strategy into a deeply spiritual vow. And that deep spiritual commitment, well, it was about to be put to the ultimate test, forging a legacy that feels more relevant today than ever. The moment of truth came on April 23, 1930, in a famous marketplace in Peshawar. Thousands of unarmed Khudai Khidmatgar were gathered, protesting some British arrests. Their vow of nonviolence was about to come face to face with the full power of the British Empire. The British troops opened fire on a peaceful, unarmed crowd. But instead of running or fighting back, the servants of God did something incredible. They stood their ground. They just held their positions, totally committed to their vow, even in the face of machine gun fire. The discipline was just astonishing. Eyewitnesses said that as one line of protesters was mowed down by bullets, the next line would just calmly step forward to take their place, facing death without flinching. That single act of supreme, nonviolent bravery sent absolute shockwaves across the British Empire. Now, you'd think after independence in 1947, Khan's fight would be over, but it wasn't. Because he kept advocating for Pashtun rights and autonomy, he was now seen as a threat by the new government of Pakistan. His life of being locked up just continued, first under the British and now under his own country's rule. When you add it all up, Abdul Ghaffar Khan spent nearly 30 years of his life in prison. 30. That's longer than Nelson Mandela. That was the unbelievable price he paid for his principles. So why does this story from so long ago matter so much today? Because Khan's Army of Peace is this incredible historical counter-narrative. It proves that nonviolence can take root and flourish even in a so-called warrior culture. It shows that a genuine mass movement of Islamic pacifism isn't just a fantasy, it's happened. It's a blueprint for peace that directly challenges the violent extremist narratives we hear all the time. And all of this leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? If a disciplined, nonviolent army of 100,000 people was possible then, in one of the world's most stereotypically violent places, why not elsewhere, right now? What's really stopping us?